It's a movie review for you. This is the 1961 movie Paris Blues. It's directed by Martin Ritt, and it's got A-list cast and crew. Let's go through the cast. Paul Newman plays Ramboan, a trombonist, jazz trombonist no less. Joanne Woodward plays Lillian Corning. She becomes a romantic interest to Ram. Sidney Poitier plays Eddie Cook. He's a sax player, also jazz aficionado. We also meet Louis Armstrong, who plays himself really as Wild Man Moore. Diane Carroll plays Connie Lampson. She becomes Poitier's romantic interest. And Barbara Lang plays Marie Sol. She's a girlfriend as such to both Ram and Eddie in their Paris environment. More on that later. We've also got members of the band, and Mustachio is played by Moustache. Oh, interesting. The pianist is Aaron Bringers. The bass player is Guy Pedersen, and a significant supporting role for Serge Reggiani, who plays the guitarist Michel Gypsy Divine. Now, it's set in Paris at the beginning of the 60s. Both Ram and Eddie have gravitated to Paris. They're at home. They are enjoying their life, playing jazz nightly at a Paris club, and they are very much at the top of their form with regard to their life as musicians in a city which is free of racism and is a pretty nice place to stay, all told. This film, a very radical film, and also a film that received a nomination in the Oscar Academy Awards at 1962 for Best Music Score. The score is by Duke Ellington, and it's a tremendous piece of music that accompanies this film. It also received a nominee for a Grammy for Duke Ellington for Best Soundtrack Album. So that's the situation. So this movie, it was the first time I'd watched it, and it's a wonderful piece of work. Let's try and get into a brief look at the plot. The movie starts off with both Ram and Eddie playing at their club, and we get a taste of the jazz that's going to flourish throughout the film. It then appears that Ram wants to be considered by the echelons within the jazz community as a writer of music, and there's a friendly sort of piece of a dialogue between Ram and Eddie over a piece of music that Ram has put on paper, and he's fishing for the highest of compliments from Eddie, but Eddie is reservedly restricting his adulation for Ram's work, albeit saying that it's a good piece. This sets the scene, which suggests that this is a strong friendship, but a friendship that's also critical of each other when appropriate. We then get to meet the ladies. Following a chance meeting, Ram runs into Connie, played by Diane Carroll, and Lillian, played by Joanne Woodward, two young women that have decided to take a 2-week vacation in Paris, and they meet at the railway station, and Ram is quick to suggest to Lillian that for entertainment they should come along to the jazz club that evening and get a taste of the music, which they duly oblige, and then we get jettisoned into two romances that develop, one between Lillian and Ram, and of course the other between Eddie and Connie. And the movie is basically, for the vast majority of it, is a tale of two romantic holiday romances, and told alongside a beautiful jazz score by Ellington. What I found, although there isn't a great deal of plot development, I found that the chemistry between the two couples was absolutely magnetic, and it starts really from the first frames, where it appears that Lillian has taken an instant shine to Ram, and he's somewhat reticent, but she attempts to get under his skin, and we follow that early sort of beginnings, and we end up back at Newman's apartment, Ram's apartment, and we arrive after they've clearly made love, and alongside that we also see the developing relationship between Poitier and Carol. Eddie is a smooth talking guy, and he has the ability through his vocal delivery to sweep Carol off her feet, and he chooses to do that in front of Notre Dame Cathedral with the Ellington score in the background. It's super romantic, to say the least. Throughout the movie, then, we are struck by the fun and the enjoyment that these two relationships have flourishing in the Paris neighbourhood, as we feast our eyes on the various locations around Paris that are part of the places to visit, Sacré-Cœur, Montmartre, the Eiffel Tower, and it really does epitomise the notion that Paris is the place to have a romantic relationship. And some of the dialogue is really great. Early on, Woodward and Newman, Ram asked, what does Lillian do back home? And her swift reply is, small job, small town, small life. And it is clear that she is looking towards that life growing with Ram as a part of it. Eddie is particularly keen on communicating to Connie the fact that he lives a life free of racism, and he tries to get it over to her that he doesn't miss America at all, whereas she is digging away at the possibility of him returning home, and she wants him to see her as part of his life in tackling the racism that clearly still exists in the States. So we have this issue running alongside the two romances, and it becomes a point of conflict between the two, but their physical attraction for each other manages to overcome the odd occasions where Connie shows her reluctance to go along with Eddie's perception of America. The street scenes are wonderful as both couples move around the city arm in arm, and the score, of course, is very much reflected in the Paris landscape. But as is the case with Vacations, they start to come towards the end, and at this stage both women lay down a marker to the men that they want the relationship to continue back in America, and this creates quite a lot of anxiety for both men as they grapple with the fact that they are in a comfortable situation in Paris, but they have actually fallen for the women and want them to be a lifelong partner. So we then have that situation that has to be resolved. It's an interesting film. It's sexually quite liberating, although again for 61 we don't see any sort of scenes that are particularly going to test the censor, but it's all there. Sex before marriage, relationships developing physically before they move towards commitment, and it redraws the moral line. There's a subplot as well. The character Michel is a junkie, and Ram tries desperately to get him to abstain from the junk, but he needs this to show his versatility and his virtuoso guitar style, and it's very much indicative of how musicians, for some musicians, they become casualties to drug use, and I found that a reality check, really. So, in conclusion, the black and white is brilliant, the score is brilliant, the lead actors are of the highest quality, the chemistry between Woodward and Newman doesn't surprise me, of course, because they've been involved in movies together on a number of occasions, and at this stage we're also married in real life. But some of it is pure magic, and I'd thoroughly recommend that you watch this movie. It's called Paris Blues. It was released in 1961, the same year that Newman was involved in the project The Hustler. So get to watch it.